Hey, it's Sammy for another episode of the I Do Music podcast, and our goal and our mission is to empower and educate musicians and artists worldwide. And on today's episode, we're talking to Jim Kumpe, owner of Sweet Melissa Records and the audio company, discussing the importance of quality audio equipment, the resurgence of vinyls, and a passion for music and sound. Hi, it's Sammy for another episode of the I Do Music podcast, and I'm sitting down with business owner of 3 businesses, actually, Jim Kumpe.
Very good.
Yes, I said it right. I practiced like 3 times before we started, so I'm glad we got it right. How you doing?
And I'm the one that needs practice.
No, you don't. You're fine. You're fine. So, the audio company,
Yes.
Sweet Melissa Records,
Yes.
and Antiques on the Square.
Where it all started.
Where
Yes.
it all started. Oh, so that's the very first business.
That was the very first business 30 years ago.
Wow.
And evolved. It was something that customers came to us and asked about, and things grew, and we just listened. And it's gone well.
And you're from Georgia.
Yes.
And all of your businesses are located in Marietta, Georgia.
They
correct?
are now. Yes.
They are now.
Yes.
Okay. So tell us about Antiques on the Square and where the vision of that came from for you to even become a business owner.
I've always bought and sold things.
Okay.
I started as a young person doing that and enjoyed it. And I love beautiful things. So that seemed to be a natural. And I like quality and authenticity. So I got very hooked into it. I have an art background, so that was easy.
Gotcha.
And just went from there.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that happened too is growing up when I did in Atlanta, the music scene was very, very vibrant. And it was the beginning of indie, and it was the beginning of some of the new types of music, not just the top 40 things.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with REM. I grew up with those kinds of bands, and also that we had some of the greatest radio stations here
Right.
in Atlanta at that time with RES and REK and Clark College. So it was a great time to be in Atlanta, a really great time to be in Atlanta.
Dope. So I imagine that your home is full of like cool collectibles and antique items, or no?
There's a drug dealer rule that says you can't get high on your own supply.
That's true.
So we try to keep that
It
to
minimal.
Yes.
So tell me, after successfully not starting not 1 but 3 businesses, why entrepreneurship? Like the term, be your own boss. What does that mean to you, and why is that important for you? I would assume it is because you don't have 1 business, you have 3.
I worked for lots of people over the years. I moved out of my house very young and had to make a living and had to work for people, and didn't always agree with the path they were going. I had some good bosses and learned some good things, but also, as I said earlier, that I had my own business very, very young, and I saw that there's some heartaches to it, and but there's also some great rewards.
Exactly. So what challenges, I mean, you talked about the heartaches that you probably had starting the business. Can you tell me some of the challenges you remember early on when even starting Antiques on the Square that you may have faced to just, opening your own business? You started working early on, but creating your own business is a whole nother ball game.
Even on the drive over here this morning, we were talking about that you don't get a day off. There is no such thing as a day off. It has to be a passion. You have to want to do it 24/7. You just have to. It's not one of those things that I can turn off on Friday night and have a weekend.
Okay.
I work all weekends. So that's part of it. That's just part of the deal.
So I want to talk more about how you believe your business, the audio company, and Sweet Melissa Records, which I want to talk about where that name came from after I'm meeting your wife. But first, how do you believe your business has helped the music and audio world here, especially in Atlanta? You said it's a space for music. We still have a buzzing music scene.
Definitely.
But how has your business?
We're in it.
We're in it right now.
Right now,
Patchwerk,
we're in it.
How do you believe your business?
And honored to be in it.
Oh no, we appreciate you being here. And you've helped Patchwerk a lot. We've obviously have a growing relationship with you over the years as well. But how do you believe your business has helped the music and audio industry here in Atlanta?
I think we were fortunate enough to get involved in retail music as it was just starting to grow, the vinyl.
Right.
We started selling new vinyl records about 15 years ago. Record Store Day started about 10 years ago. So we were there at the beginning of that. And I think for those OTP, is that correct? Outside the perimeter?
Okay. Okay.
We needed to bring some hip to the outside, because there's some great record stores in Atlanta and have been for many, many years. But we
Gotcha.
wanted to add to that and to be part of that.
Dope.
So that's, I think, what we brought to that.
Well, tell us about Record Store Day.
Well, let me go back and say that I need to thank Big Crit for introducing me to Curtis.
Yes.
And that's how that started. And that was part of how we found Patchwerks, and that Crit came in looking for records.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
And Record Store Day is now in its 10th year. It's the big Record Store Day is in April, and the small one is the day after Thanksgiving. It's called Black Friday Record Store Day. And it's sort of a mutual appreciation. It's for me thanking you for coming to my independent record store, and you thanking me for having one.
Right.
The artists got involved and started putting out limited edition pressings of things that you could only get on that day. And that's what's made it grow so quickly. And I think the people behind Record Store Day are very, very smart. They're smart about music. They know things to pick that have good desirability. And it keeps getting bigger. This was its 10th year this last April.
That's awesome. Congrats to that. Have you seen a rising popularity in these vinyls the last few years? Like I told you off the record, I just bought my mom maybe like a couple years ago a new record player, and it's the one that has like the CD and all that. Like, it's a newer one, obviously, but she's back into her records and her vinyls and like really appreciating it a lot more today. And I see a lot of younger people in my generation who are obsessed with vinyls and things that are more tangible instead of, we use Apple Music and streams and things like that. Have you seen that with your business?
Definitely. And I think Apple is part of the reason for the resurgence in vinyl,
Really?
because I can't share music with you. And music is about sharing and showing and wanting to see what you're playing and what I'm playing. And I can't do that with an iPhone.
That's true.
So it also doesn't sound very good. That's the other thing. So I give them some credit for helping us bring back vinyl. The other thing that I think is beautiful that happens in the shop all the time is the young people are seeing whoever their favorite band is, and they want it on vinyl. And they come in with their parents, and their parents are turning them on to the Beatles, let's say, or older music.
Right.
And the kids are turning the parents on to their new music, and they're coming and shopping together. And I think it's a wonderful thing to see.
That's
at
a
the
cool
shop.
thing
It
to
is.
like bridge the gap almost.
Yes, because a lot of times those teenage years can be tough.
Yeah.
And this is a great bridging tool.
Well,
as
that's
you say.
very rewarding.
I think so. It's
Yeah.
always fun. They usually get Dad's hand-me-down turntable, and then Dad buys a better turntable for his system at home. So it works out really nice.
Let's talk about the name of the shop, Sweet Melissa Records. Who's Sweet Melissa?
She's my sweet Melissa.
Oh, that's dope. She came in and introduced herself as Melissa, and I'm like, wait,
Wait.
that makes sense. Okay.
Yes, it does.
All right, that's awesome. And I wanted to ask you, I guess, have you seen, or who is your consumer in all of your businesses? Who are the people that are shopping at Sweet Melissa Records, the audio company, especially for those of our listeners that are really into music and sound? Who do you see that comes into, like, do you have a wide range of a consumer? What's your demographic that you find?
It is a wide range. As I said, we've got teenagers coming in for their first record, which is also rewarding. I think we all remember what our first record was. And introductory turntables and the appropriate speakers and amplification that goes along with that. To, again, Dad wanting to upgrade what he has and going from there, and all the way through the finest of the fine luxury audio systems available anywhere in the world right now. That's where the audio company came from. It was an evolution of Sweet Melissa as an introductory source and going into a higher end, a much better sounding gear.
Gotcha.
Much better sounding gear. And that again came from customers saying, I see that you have this, but I really want better.
Right.
Where can I go to get better? And you seem to know what you're talking about, but I want better. So
Gotcha.
we got another space that's just behind Sweet Melissa Records, and it's one of the finest, most beautiful. Curtis can attest to this. Shops that you've ever come into.
Yeah.
It's a salon. It really is.
That's dope. So tell me about Capitol Audio Fest. You all recently.
We do several audio shows a year, and it's a place for the public to see a wide range of different kinds of systems of all price points across the country. They have them in Los Angeles and Chicago, and this one was in Washington D.C. Capitol
Nice. I went to
Audio.
school there. Yeah.
And since it was our last show of the year, we decided to pull out all the stops.
Wow.
And we put together, and it has been reviewed as such, probably the finest audio system that has ever been put together at any of these shows.
Wow.
One of the reviewers said that it was the best thing he'd ever heard in his 30 years of
Really?
going to these shows.
That's awesome.
It was just over $1 million system.
Wow.
Von Schweiker speakers, valve amplification, critical mass, transrotor, a lot of the brands that people, Esoteric is in the digital. We are doing digital also. And it was something else. It was unbelievable.
I'm sure all of the engineers listening are just like, oh my gosh, because I have no idea what some of those brands are, but I'm like, okay, sounds pretty luxury to me. Tell me, I guess, how you even fell into the world. I know you said you have a passion for music and just the sound and how music was growing in Atlanta, but you're very knowledgeable, it seems, about all of this equipment, these brands. Obviously, you're a retail store, so you sell them. You have to know what you're selling. But how did you become so knowledgeable, and where did you find that interest really more so on the retail side of it?
It started with being young and trying to put together the best system. And when I was growing up, it was cool. You wanted, that was part of your living room. That was, like having art in your house. I mean,
Right.
it was really, really cool. It's coming back that way, and
Gotcha.
it's coming back as a luxury item, and not just for somebody to have a man cave in the basement.
Right.
It's coming back as something, and the turntable helped with that. It's a cool thing to have in your living room. It's a cool thing to show and to share. So buying gear year after year, trying to find something sounded better, going through all the hype and what's right and what's wrong, going to these audio shows for the last however many years it's been, getting to listen to lots and lots of different gear, and again, what's hype, what's not. We've vetted strongly everything that's at the audio company.
Nice.
It is the best of the best, and it's worth every penny of it. It's these companies have been around. They're innovative. They're very strong, and we wanted to bring the best that we could to Atlanta.
That's awesome. We
and
appreciate
to the world.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of people who come from outside of Georgia to visit the
We
audio
do.
company, or
Because
Sweet
it's
Melissa?
such high end, and since there's so few showrooms that do the level that we do, and
Right.
because Atlanta has such a great airport, well, yes,
True.
we get people from not only the southeast, but from overseas too, that come just
Wow.
to audition speakers or
That
tube
is dope.
amplification. Yes.
That's awesome. Let me ask you, I guess, how are you able to identify and reach that market for each business? I asked you who's your consumer, but how are you able to identify and reach the market? Because I'm assuming that, with any great company, there's branding and marketing that goes along with it, and getting the word out organically, but also with strategy. So how have you reached your consumer?
Social media, obviously. You're right about the organic. There's no question that the word gets out. Doing the shows was purposeful
Sure.
in doing that to get and to be branded as the audio company, so
Right.
people would know that we are standing behind different manufacturers because we think they're good. And some of the manufacturers also have their own advertising platforms that they use that then bring the consumer back to us, which is very helpful. And we've picked some of those again because they're strong businesses.
Gotcha.
And so it's a back and forth flow.
Do you have a secret to success that you're willing to share with us?
Listen.
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 Who were some people that you listened to when developing, maybe somebody that you didn't realize you were listening to then, but they really helped you when, developing your businesses today?
I am very fortunate that my father is very important,
Awesome.
and sweet Melissa.
Thanks, sweet Melissa. You're awesome. That's awesome. So, do you have any, I guess, helpful tips for someone starting a business, like to just from the ground up? Because I'm just really amazed. I keep saying like you don't have you have more than one business. It's very challenging, I would assume, to look after inventory and employees, and how do you manage all of that?
You try to get good people around you. And I want to say first that, with the audio company, that Keith Sequeira and Gordon Waters are great partners.
Awesome.
I couldn't do it without them. It's like, I use sports analogy. It's like a football team. You only need one quarterback and a couple of linemen. You need all the different positions played well. No one guy can do it. And that's what's going on at the audio company. We've had great people at Sweet Melissa Records. I want to thank Rhett Watley with Daily Bread, who helped us with getting Curtis in and Crit into the shop. So good people around you.
Gotcha.
And one more time, Sweet Melissa. She's really good about that. She's good
Yeah.
at listening to customers and what their wants are and making sure I do what I'm supposed to do.
Keeping you on track. It's always a woman,
Exactly.
but I say that every time. It's always a woman right there, usually in any successful business.
If we're lucky.
If you're lucky, right? That's awesome. I wanted to ask you just to dive into the relationship with you meeting Curtis and how Big Crit, because you spoke on it briefly, but how did Big Crit come into the shop?
He was doing I don't know if it's a podcast or what you would call it, but it was for Mass Appeal.
Okay.
And it was a great thing that they were putting together, where he would go into a record store and blindly pick 3 or 4 records, and then he would put together a song from those 3 or 4 records. And he did it here at Patchwerk.
Okay.
And so in talking, Crit was talking to Curtis and said, that he had gone to this record store in Marietta, and Curtis was like, I drive past there. I didn't know that existed.
Right.
And so he showed up one afternoon after closing. I saw him at the door, and I didn't know who he was, and I said, "Come in. Who are you? And what how can I help?" And so we met, and it's been a great relationship since then. We want to do more stuff together, and we
Yeah.
will do more stuff together.
I'm sure
But
there's definitely a way to merge the two and continue to build the relationship.
well, it's so important to what I do, of what Curtis does.
Exactly.
Because and Kenny, because if you don't have quality recordings, if these things don't sound good, I don't care what I play them through, they're not going to sound good. So
Right.
it's got to start here. And nobody can do it better than a professional. So you've got to have professional recording, professional engineering, and professional mastering to get all those things done, so that we can then have something to appreciate.
Exactly.
And people are spending big money on making sure that they can hear everything that these professionals put together, or the artists themselves.
Right.
I think Crit was surprised at how expensive some of the things could get, because he
Right.
said, like, I've got to make sure my stuff sounds great, because you guys are taking this pretty seriously. And it's
Right.
like, yes, we are.
Yeah.
Very, very seriously.
So let me ask you this: do you have any other relationships with studios in Georgia, in Atlanta?
No, we
No?
do not.
So do you believe it's beneficial for you to have those? I mean, you kind of said it already, but do you believe it's beneficial for you to have those relationships with studios, with a business like yours, with luxury audio equipment? I mean, we need to make sure that the records sound great. Do you think that you should have those relationships? Would it be beneficial to you?
I think what we have here at Patchworks is very, very special. We've learned a lot. They've opened their doors. They've been very kind to us. I don't know about. I have no desire to go anywhere else, but maybe it could be. It's a good question. I'm not sure that. I think it's getting, and Curtis has been talking about this, is getting the people that come to our world to understand what his world does, to listen to what Kenny's doing and why they sound the way they do. And that's one of the things that we're trying to develop, and I'd like to continue to try to develop it. And I think it's really important.
Let me ask you this, because especially in hip hop music, there are a lot, like there's the mixtape world, and a lot of things. There, a lot of producers and artists are able or capable of recording things at home or so they think. And you know what I mean?
As they think.
Right. That
And that's why I said professional. It's what Kenny does here and some of the engineer, it's a whole different ballgame. And people have been led to believe that they can do it, and it's just not the same thing.
because when they plug up to your equipment, you
We
hear
can tell immediately that that's not any good.
so
And it's unfortunate, but it's true. That's why these places are so important. That's why Patchworks is so important.
what do you think will help to bridge the gap so they can experience like luxury audio equipment and can maybe get an understanding of like how their music does sound on something that you might provide at the audio company?
Well, I think that's again where Curtis was saying that he's putting together these great seminars on the weekends for young people to get involved in and understand what he's doing and how important Patchworks is. And then if we could get those same people to come to the audio company and say, okay, here's what we did, here's what you sang or made, and here's how we recorded it, and now here's what it sounds like on great playback material.
Right.
That's the circle that we need to complete.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, you've had been in the business for many years.
Longer than I want to admit to.
30 years at
I
Antiques
started
on
when
the
I was
Square.
3.
Well, listen, you've had, I would say that you're very experienced in audio and sound and in the music industry, but I guess I want to ask you, what changes have you noticed in audio and music over time? And are there any changes that have influenced business growth and productivity for you?
I think the thing in the audio world is that the gear keeps getting better and better and better. We have a turntable at the shop that's about $300. It's an introductory turntable. It's about $329. It's almost exactly the same turntable that I bought for $40 or $50 more in the late 70s.
Oh, wow.
So the technology has improved. The prices come down. People are always complaining about, but its quality has come back, and that's what I think is really, really important. They are still making. I mean, a speaker may look like a speaker, but there's a lot of new innovations behind what's that box that you're looking at, and I think that's what's been kind of cool about.
Have you been a part of making any like equipment or being in
Gordon,
a
our
part of that
tech,
process?
is very, very smart about doing some of those things, and Keith and Gordon are two of the best setup people I've ever heard. They know they can tune a room like you wouldn't believe.
Really?
I was watching you and Kenny talking about tuning a room, and it's important. It's something that not everybody understands about setting up a system.
Right.
And they're the best, and I think that's why we're getting the accolades we are at the shows. Besides, we have picked really good gear. But that's a very, very important part of it.
Okay.
I don't know ask the question again, because there's a lot of stuff there.
I was just asking if there's anything that has influenced your growth and productivity, being that music just changes so much and sound equipment changes so much. So I think you kind of did answer that in a way. It might have been a loaded question, but try to get it out of you.
The vinyl record helped a lot.
Okay.
It brought a lot of energy back. When we first started going to some of the shows, the guys were really, it was like, why is everybody so down? I mean, it's records are selling like crazy. This is fun. People are enjoying it.
Right.
They didn't have the front end experience that I did going into the show. So we went in, excited and happy, and it kind of caught a buzz. The people at the shows were like, "Who are these guys? They're excited about what they're doing and have a passion." So I think that's part of it. That really did help a lot.
So you probably see a lot of
and the records sound so much better.
Right. On vinyl.
And here we are back to Patchworks. If they make a great recording and it's on a record, a vinyl record, because they're records to me, they just sound better. They sound a lot better.
I agree. I can agree with that. I love vinyls. I wanted to ask you if you see a lot of I'm sure you see a lot of DJs
Yes.
and artists
Yes.
come into the shop, come into the audio company or several of your businesses. So any cool experiences you've had aside from the Big Crit story that you share with us? Anybody you're just like, oh, great, great to see you stop by.
I guess one of my favorites is that Rhett Watley of Daily Bread, who worked with us for a while, helped develop and foster young people that were starting, and he had a big heart. He gave a lot, and now to see his career blow up
Yeah.
is so rewarding. That we just got pictures of him at Red Rock just recently. It's like, wow, that's just crazy.
Awesome.
And he just was at the Coca-Cola Roxy, so he's doing quite well. So I think that's been exciting for us, and we get people through the backside. The producers, the engineers, that come through that you don't know their faces. You don't know who they are, but then you start looking up their work after they've left, and you go, "Oh my,
You did that.
yeah, you were the one."
Right. That's cool.
And they're usually so humble and appreciative of what we're doing because they know that we're selling their goods.
That's true. Would you have done anything differently in this process of starting your businesses and
First thing that comes to mind is a bigger space,
bigger space?
which is yeah, you can't have too many.
So do you believe that Sweet Melissa Records has become like a staple in the perimeter and in the metro Atlanta area in terms of like a record shop you can go to here?
I think that it has. We've outlasted some others. Once you see something succeeding, people try to do that also. I also think that we've evolved enough now that we're going to push in some other directions. Like we will be the best classical records shop in Atlanta, inside or outside the perimeter.
Yeah.
We will have some of the finest jazz. We will have some of those things that, not just the normal things that you go and find at the wannabe record stores or the big box stores that are starting to sell records now. I kid that Kroger, I think, is selling records now.
What?
They're not.
Oh,
They're not, but it's almost like they're.
I feel you.
So, yeah, we want to specialize in those, again, really wonderful recordings, making sure that if you have great gear at home, that you have some software that will sound great on it.
Right. Well, I guess I'm curious to know why do you feel like so many record shops are appearing? I mean, obviously there's a demand for it now, but why do you believe there are so many appearing in Atlanta?
It's because I've seen it with other businesses over the past. There's a when somebody sees something successful, they say, "Oh, I can do that," and they don't really realize
What it takes.
what it takes. And it's if you wanted to do that, you needed to do it when I did it way back when. As I mentioned, there's some other good record stores in town that have been doing it longer than I have. You can't just start today.
Right.
You needed to start. 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You missed the wave.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's all good. Speaking the truth. Do you guys have a relationship with each other, like other local record stores? Is that something like...
I make it a point of calling them before record store days and wishing them well and hoping they do well. Yeah, I want to. Danny over Wax and Facts is in the Georgia Music Hall of Fame. There's some good folks. Criminal was part of developing Record Store Day. So yeah, we've got
really?
some. Walk Street is historic, is with their location in Athens, and the one here. So yeah, you've got again, the Atlanta scene has really been phenomenal.
Right.
It's been a great place to learn and to grow up.
Absolutely. Is there anything that you wish to see, and especially, I guess, because our audience, like I said, is primarily hip-hop, R&B, top 40. Is there anything that you wish for artists and musicians to maybe do in terms of creating their process of creating music? Is there anything that you hope for when you listen to music in general, coming from newer artists that hope that they consider when making music?
I don't think I'm answering your question the way you're asking it, but one of the things that I do wish that they would do is I wish they would bring their test pressings of vinyl to our shop so that they could listen to them before they press them.
Yeah.
I think that could be helpful to everybody.
No, that answers the question.
We could also help get the word out that, it's a good PR time to help them. Social media helps. We've had several bands do that, and they've caught things in doing that process. Our business is a lot more hip hop and rap and R&B than most people would think where our location is,
Hmm.
and so it's growing constantly.
I guess I don't. It's not unexpected that it's not a hip hop. Your location doesn't cater to that. I think it's just more so that we don't appreciate all the time the value of the sound, and I've recognized that just by hearing a lot of the music myself. So
Okay.
that's why I really want to ask and encourage.
There is, and it's unfortunate because there's a couple really big names and artists that I love
Hmm.
that are sampling from old records,
Hmm.
and they don't care if those records are scratched or not scratched. So they're sampling from something that's inferior sound quality because it's a scratched record,
Gotcha.
and then recording that, and then when we play it back, somebody comes in and goes, "Oh, it's too bad your record's scratched," and it's like, no, actually, that was done on purpose.
Right.
And I appreciate that they're digging,
Hmm.
and I like the digging, but I wish sometimes they'd clean them. And I wish sometimes they'd find maybe a better copy. Rhett would always get on me. Daily Red would always get on me about, you got to go digging. You can't just pull it off the internet. You got to go find those things. And
Right.
and I get that. I appreciate that a lot. But sometimes the quality of the record needs to be a little
Tell
better.
me some of your favorite artists, like of all times, like something that you will always listen to, that you're like, I love to hear that on the record. So you were speaking about the how people are sampling records, and you may hear like basically like a record may not always sound like the quality of the record may not sound like the same as another record, and you guys go through a particular process in grading your records. Did I say that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Can you explain that for us?
Well, records can be found in lots of different places to purchase. And one of the things that we pride ourselves in, and it's very, very important to playback quality, is the condition of the record.
Mm-hmm.
On most records, we will visually grade them, and we have a system at the shop that we use that, 10, there's a notation on the label that says, let's say 10 is sealed, 9 is a mint record, looks like it just got opened, 8 is a good clean record for normal playback, and then we have a 7, which is what I call scuffed. It's been lugged. It's been
Mm-hmm.
in and out of that sleeve a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't affect the sound of the record, but it does. It's not as pretty.
Yeah.
And then 6s are scratched. You're going to hear it.
Right.
And so that's very, very important. A lot of the records that we see that, because we buy from individuals, they come in and they don't understand that if a record is all scratched up, it's not going to sound good, and that defeats the whole purpose,
Right.
because we're after a higher quality sound. We don't just think this is cool. This is we're very passionate about the sound quality, and that's why we do that. And that's why I also mentioned about wanting to have a classical library. Nobody in town really is pushing that because it's hard,
Yeah.
and it's hard to find really great recordings of classical music, jazz music, those kinds of things.
So people will come in and sell
Yes,
records.
yes, all record stores buy from individuals
Gotcha.
at some pointers, and we do that. We also go looking for collections, and then of course we also have new records.
Gotcha. So you appreciate the quality, and
Oh,
obviously in
it's
all of your business.
really, really, really important. Very
Cool.
important.
I wanted to ask you some of your favorite records, some of the records that you played since forever, and you'll continue to play them.
I, as I said before, have been fortunate enough to grow up in an amazing musical environment here in Atlanta. And so I am one of those that does not listen to things twice.
Oh, really?
I'm like a shark. I'm constantly looking for something new. I'm constantly looking for something new.
Gotcha.
So I don't, and because I have to listen to so much stuff, because we order 300, there's 300 new titles that come out every week.
Wow.
And so I have to listen to a lot of new
New
music
music.
constantly, which I love, and is also part of my playback. If I'm going to have to listen to that much music, I'm going to listen to it the best way I possibly can. That's why I said digital music. I have to preview music before I get the album,
Gotcha.
before we order the vinyl. So I want it to sound good. And that's why we carry some of the brands like Esoteric, because I think they are making the best digital sources going now. But yeah, there's some classic people. I mean, you can't go anywhere without Miles Davis. You can't go anywhere without Mozart. You can't go anywhere without Jay Dilla. You can't. I mean, it's all over the board.
I love it. That's what I was looking for. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. I want to go back to the consumer again.
Who's coming in?
Who's coming into the audio company, and who is buying this luxury high-end equipment? Because I think that there's a need for a lot of people, but I'm not exactly sure who's coming in there to invest in themselves and in the music that they're listening to.
Somewhere along the line, people either innately or they learn about how good things can sound. And I don't know exactly how that process, it's different I'm always amazed at the difference in people. They come in and they have perfect pitch or something that just makes them just appreciate this. And so it's a passion that they just keep looking for better and better quality gear. You can't tell what they look like. You don't know.
I'm like, are young black women like myself coming into your shop or into the audio company?
Yes.
Okay.
And they can't spend some of the high-end luxury things because they're young is the main thing.
Right.
But they're looking for and they want to know how to spend their money the wisest way, how to get the best bang for the buck.
Gotcha.
They don't want to just get from point A to point B. They want it to be a nice ride. I think that's where it starts. And then after that, as you start to develop a family, your job takes off a little bit, this passion never goes away. And it's like, I had that when I was in college, but now I want better.
Now I can afford it.
Now I can afford it. And so they come in wanting the next step. And they're constantly looking for the next step. Part of the hobby is actually getting rid of the weakest link in the chain of your gear.
Gotcha.
If your source, your turntable or whatever is not, you change that out. If it's your cartridge on your turntable or if it's your speakers, you're constantly looking for. And we try to direct people in that way of where's the best way to spend your money. It's not one kind of person. It's all kinds of people. There are people that, the other thing is, you listen to music in college that you loved.
Absolutely.
You want to hear it again.
Yeah.
But you want to hear it better.
Yeah, definitely.
So when you turn, say, in your 40s, you come in looking for some of that and to relive some of those college days, but you want it to sound better than your college system did. And that's what happens. So there isn't one kind of person that does it. It's somebody that's just very, very passionate about music.
Gotcha. Music enthusiast.
Very, very serious. Because you end up spending serious money.
I know. I can imagine. You said you created $1 million system.
$1 million system. So, and it will be replicated as close as we possibly can in the showroom in Marietta.
Wow.
But that also means that we have things that are not quite that as expensive, but will sound good in almost every price point. That's what we're vetting.
Gotcha.
The gear, so that if it's not about necessarily ease. That's some of the things, like if you're happy with an Apple phone and earbuds,
so be it.
So be it. If you want to listen to your Sonos, which is basically to me an AM radio, that's all that is. Mm-hmm. It really is. It's one speaker. It's not two. It's something that you put on your kitchen counter and you listen to NPR. Love NPR. Want to hear it every day. Probably don't put on your big system to listen to NPR. You can.
Right.
Though it sounds really nice on a big system. But when you get serious about listening to music and you want something good, now we're getting into luxury. Now we're getting into high-end. And these products are made much, much better. They're the detail, the imaging, the beauty, the detail, the workmanship that's gone in from a Patchwerk, from the artist. You get to hear that now. A good analogy is cars.
Yeah, I was going to say...
Cars is a great analogy.
Yeah.
Some people, in the old days, they say, oh, I don't want an automatic, I want a stick shift because I really want to drive. Right. Automatic's easier, but stick shift, you're involved. And this is people that want to be involved in it. You can having a Hyundai or a Honda are good cars. There's nothing wrong with them. But some people want Ferraris, and that's what
That's the
this is.
business you're in.
That's the business we're in.
Awesome. So tell me some of the, because I know you mentioned a few companies prior or brands prior to this question, but I just want to know maybe some of the gear and equipment that you recommend.
We have a philosophy preference that if for amplification, if you're going to spend small amounts of money, that at some point you get to say $1,000, $2,000 that you should get involved in tube amplification, which is different than solid state. We think it's more musical.
Mm-hmm.
It has that sort of vinyl-esque sound to it. It's warmer. It's progressed enough. In the old days, they didn't think it had enough bass. It does. It can. It will. It's good.
No, we like bass. Okay.
We carry two different lines. Rogue Audio is where you would probably start,
Okay.
and then you would come in and see Valve Amplification Company, and that's where you would want to get to eventually.
Nice.
He's making the finest tube gear in the world right now.
Nice.
Von Schweiker speakers, probably part of this $1 million system that we just put together, probably the best speakers I've ever heard in my life. We also carry Tannoy and Focal, who also make some very, very fine speakers. I mentioned Esoteric earlier. Their line of digital sources is crazy good.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy good. They're CD players, and I know not a lot of people are buying CDs now, but they can sound good if it's played back correctly. And their streaming systems are the finest I've ever heard. Racks are important.
Yes.
Critical mass racks that we carry. Cables are important. I heard Kenny talking about cables with you the
Yeah.
other day. They're also very important. We carry several brands there, Audio Quest. I'm also wearing their headphones that I think are wonderful.
Yeah, they're pretty sporty. I like them.
Yeah, they're
It's
good.
nice brand.
Who else should I mention? Masterbuilt cables, Audio Quest cables. Turntables.
Yeah.
How could I forget
You
turntables?
can't forget about the
Turntables.
turntables.
Audio Technica is
Yeah.
great. They're my favorite of theirs is their low end. Denon makes a good changer for the middle-aged folks that want a changer, that remember that. And then Project has been making an award-winning table for the last 6 or 7 years. Music Hall, Transrotor, beautiful upper-end tables, clear audio. Yeah, there's some great tables. You can spend $15,000 on a cartridge.
Wow. Yeah, it's gonna be a few years before I get into the audio company, but I definitely want to stop by.
Oh, you can
and
come anytime.
Yes,
And you can look at
absolutely.
all of them. We'd love to show you from the beginning to the end
Yes.
of what you can do.
Dope. Yeah, I just picked up my own little controller, so I'm just starting off. So we'll see how that journey goes. But I love that you're into luxury audio equipment. I think that is important for our audience to really understand the importance of sound and how it is definitely a difference. It makes a difference.
The high-end manufacturers understand that, and they want it to be in your living room. We don't think you should have to go to the basement to listen to music. You shouldn't be in trouble to go listen to music. It should be
Right.
something. And with Sweet Melissa, years ago, I said this pair of speakers was traveling through town, and I said, give me 5 minutes. Just please sit down and listen to them. I know this is geeky, but do it just for me. And she did, and she goes, I got it. I get it completely. There's a difference. There's a huge difference. And it's not something people say, oh, it's diminishing returns. It's really not.
Right.
There's huge steps of quality, and
Right.
it's real obvious back to the car. When you sit in a Hyundai and you sit in a Ferrari, you don't have to go, oh, the smell will get
Exactly.
you. You'll know
That
immediately.
smell, exactly.
Right. So it doesn't take much. It just takes the patience to sit down and listen to it. So if people come in and try, and at any price point, we can show you what will sound the best at that price point.
Absolutely. I love the passion, Jim.
Thank you.
I'm very passionate about sound. And I thank you for sitting down with us. Can you tell the people, any last tips or advice for those budding entrepreneurs like myself?
Entrepreneurs,
People who are who want to start their own business owners.
I'm going to go back to listen, thank people. They will come back. You will see them again. Yeah, be very appreciative of every single step. It's really
Absolutely.
important.
Trust the process.
Yes.
Dope.
Yes.
Can you share with us the social media where they can find you or your businesses?
Sweet Melissa Records, Facebook, Twitter, all of them. The audio company are the two main.
Okay.
You should go see the audio company because there's some great pictures of the room in D.C. when
From
we
the
first.
Capitol Audio Fest.
Yeah, the Capitol Audio Festival. When we first got there, and I sent some photographs to Melissa, I was like, "It looks like Barney's in New York. It's so cool. I can't
dope.
believe." Yeah, it's just absolutely gorgeous.
I'm going to check it out. And I appreciate you for sitting down with us on the podcast. It's a pleasure. And I'm happy for you listening to our podcast.
Thanks for taking care of me, Sammy.
No problem, Jim. We're friends now, you know. We're in this together. Thank you guys for listening. As always, you can follow me at Sammy Approved. And thanks for tuning in to the Audio Music Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks to Curtis, too.
Thank you, Curtis.
Sonically superior.